Hey guys, so a V story that has been a long time coming. I'm going to meander on the beginning. I know I really shouldn't, but it's because I tried to do this review twice, and the first time was a dry run through, and it took me 45 minutes. The second one was with notes, and it took me an hour and a half. I had an hour and a half video. Couldn't upload it. I didn't think you guys wanted to sit through it, so I'm going to do it a lot quicker now. I cut down on my notes and all that stuff, so it should be good. So, the story I'm going to be reviewing today is surprisingly not a grimdark. It is actually a romance fiction. And I believe there will be a video out explaining my love for the romance genre. It should be out somewhere. But the story is called 7 Days in Heaven, and it is written by dude with the pen name Jace the Pony Sculptor, which is a joke for anyone who is into Magic the Gathering. And if you don't know Magic the Gathering, it doesn't really matter. Just ignore it. But if you want my opinion, first of all, before I get into my review and talk about the plot and the characters and all that stuff, if you should read it, the only reason you should not read this story is if you hate romance with an ungodly passion, everything it stands for. That's the only excuse that you can come up with. Because if you even have the slightest inkling of liking romance, then you should read it. Because honestly, I have not been this excited about a fan fiction anymore. It's just, I don't get too excited about stories, but this one really pleased me, really tickled my fancy, I guess you could say. It's well written, and I'm going to go into that. So I'm going to change up the way I review it, just from a grimdark, because I obviously can't review grimdark elements. But a forewarning for anyone before you run ahead and read it: there is clop in it. The characters are humanized, so it might not be as bad if you're completely against that sort of thing. I personally don't care either way, but there is a few scenes of a sexual nature in the story, but I'm going to be reviewing the plot, settings, characters. Characters take a while. The romance aspect of the story, but they'll kind of be touched upon in each of the other categories, and clop itself. I do like to touch on clop itself, not to describe it, but to more talk about the necessity of it in the story. So we'll start with the plot. So I actually have a cheat sheet because, like I said, I want this to go as quickly as I can. So I'm just going to pull that up quickly. So we talk about okay, well, actually, I'm going to have to give the location. I'll give you guys the plot first. So the plot of the story is that it takes place in a second-person narrative in which you are this guy who is just, like, in community college. Now, you're on the first break of the year, and your friend, Rainbow Dash, who has been your friend since, like, middle school, has invited you out to her parents' cabin for a week of break. Now, you have this huge crush on Rainbow Dash. She is, like, just, like, your idol. You idolize her. You basically follow her around like a puppy dog, and you love her in a huge way. So, you know, spending a week with her at her parents' cabin just sounds amazing. And she says she has a surprise for you. So, but as you're driving there, she kind of lets slip that, oh, well, there's going to be other people there. So your fantasies of, you know, just being able to spend an entire weekend just with Rainbow Dash is kind of dashed. And you get to the cabin, and it's the rest of the main six now. Like I said, the story is humanized. And basically what happened is, throughout the week that is going to happen, each of them is going to spend one single day with you, because all of them want to thank you for something that you did in their middle school, high school years. Something that you basically changed their life in some dramatic way. You have helped them in such a huge way that they feel that they really need to thank you. So each day you're going to meet up with one of them, and you're going to do different, you know, just whatever they have planned for you that day. Now, it is written in second person, but I'm going to refer to the character as Dan, because I'm going to touch on this later, but I believe it should have been an OC. I don't usually read stories that are OC / any of the main six. I know I wrote one, but that was for a friend. But I don't usually read stuff like that because I see it as a character, an author trying to get their own character or their persona, themselves as point form, to have a romantic relationship with a member of the main six. I personally don't like that all that much because it's so shallow. But ignoring that. So this character, I'm gonna name him Dan. So that's basically the entire plot of the story. The story is very slice of life. There's not a lot of conflict in it, but it is a very good story because of the fact that it doesn't need conflict in order to be good. Because you can see the trials and tribulations that each character has gone through, and you feel for these characters, and you get connected with them. And when you can get connected with characters, becomes a good story. So the location finished with plot. The plot is actually very original. I don't think I've ever read anything similar to this, or similar to this in such a way that when I started reading it, I thought it was going to be a harem fic, but it is not. It is not a harem fic in any way, which surprised and kind of made me respect this guy all much more because it would have been easy for him to do so. Sorry, I have water because this takes a while. But we'll go to setting, location. Location takes place mostly in the cabin, but throughout, as he's spending the day with the main six, he will constantly have flashbacks to when he helped them, like you're kind of seeing back into the memory of how he helped each one. So you'll see high school, you'll see a high school party, you'll see a park, you'll see at one point you see a graveyard, you see like just a mountain, like a small hill in the middle of nowhere. You see all these different locations, and the best part is that even though they're not described too well, the locations are so general that you can picture them easily. I'm pretty sure anyone can picture what a high school looks like. I'm pretty sure anyone, even someone like me who has never personally been to a high school party, I know what a high school party looks like. I know what the stereotypical high school party looks like, so I can always picture it. So Jace makes his locations so ambiguous that you can just as easily picture them, as opposed to someone who puts too strict regulations upon the location and you don't relate to it, which is something good if you want to write a second person fic. Like I said, it shouldn't have been. I believe it shouldn't have been second person, but he does have that part down right. That's really about it for location. Like I said, it's fantastic. Characters. Okay, so this usually takes a while because I need to go in depth with each character, but I'm really going to try to shorten it down as much as I can. So we're going to start off in the order that the characters spend the days with Dan, and then we're going to actually go on to Dan himself because, like I said, I believe he should have been an OC. So we'll start off with Applejack. Applejack has the first day, and basically through the flashbacks, you can see Applejack as a kid was so she had this tough exterior that she constantly put out, that she basically had this outer shell that she wouldn't let anyone penetrate. She wouldn't let anyone get close to her because she had lost her parents. She was different from everyone else. She had the country accent. She didn't wear makeup. She wore hand-me-downs. Her dresses were all sewn up. She was made fun of every day because she worked hard and she had muscles. Girls would call her lesbian and all this stuff, and she just had this wall. Now what happened was Dan was actually brought in to tutor her, and through the tutoring she went from failing math, understanding only addition, subtraction, and multiplication, to getting an A on her midterm. And she, instead of this making her happy, she freaks out because she's like, she basically says that she is not a smart person. She's never been good at learning. She's stupid because everyone says she is. And this really kind of brings into context this character's mental state. She wants so badly to just be a farm girl. She wants to keep the family farm running for her parents, for her brother, for her grandma, for her younger sister, that she is willing to just cut down anything good that can come out of learning. She's willing to say that can't be right just so she can scrape by on this mediocre life but keep the rest of her family happy. And it's intriguing in the sense that she is so willing, she is so loyal to her family, but at the same time, it's supposed to be the element of honesty. She is honest to no one. She's not even honest to herself in that sense. Now, Dan eventually convinces her that she is smart, and that's basically how it ends. With she started hanging out with him and Rainbow Dash in their middle school years. But as we time skip into her being an adult, what happens is basically she takes Dan fishing, and she starts trying to get close to him. And basically it crashes and burns like you would expect, because this guy is shy as heck. And she's leaning on him, and he kind of gets up and runs away for a second, says he needs to use the washer, whatever, comes back, and all the doubts that she had as a kid comes back. You know, she's like, I know I'm not pretty, I know I don't wear makeup and all this stuff, but I thought that wouldn't matter to you. You said all those things when we were younger. You said I was beautiful without it. You said I was smart without it. But yeah, if that's what's wrong, I can change for you. And he's like, and he basically tells her that it's not that, it's just he's never been close to someone, but that's irrelevant to Applejack's character. But you can see the lingering doubt that she has. She still doubts herself, even after what he said. And that is honestly realistic. Because no matter what someone can say to you, we will always doubt ourselves. I believe in the saying that we are our toughest critics. We are our own toughest critics. We see ourselves at our worst every single time. And instead of her just being cured by this guy, by his words, by this guy that she admires, by this guy that she loves, it only fuels her doubt. And like I said, that's a realistic reaction for this character to have. So that's Applejack's character. That's what I've seen. I don't want to spoil too much of the story for you, but I'll move on to Rarity's. Now, what happened to Rarity was that she was a pretty popular girl in school, as to be expected. Now, Rarity's character is one of the ones I have the most trouble with, not in the sense that I can't analyze her, but more in the sense that she seems like she learned the least out of her experience with Dan. Now, what happened was she got Dan to pretend to be her boyfriend back in middle school to make Prince Blue Blood, jealous, so that he would take her back and she could become prom queen because he was going to become prom king. And it's really complicated social, popular kid stuff that I don't pretend to follow, but continuing on. And what happened was Blue Blood flipped, and, well, okay, no, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Blue Blood flipped and he basically beat her up, and then they got into a fight and all this stuff happened. But like I said, read the story if you're still curious about it. This, like I said, my reviews for people who have already read the story. But Rarity shows I use this word a lot. Well, I use these two words a lot. But narcissistic and egotistical personality that you would expect from someone who is popular. Someone who has been basically put up on a pedestal, who all the girls aspire to be like, and all the guys aspire to be with this one girl, and she is flat out told no at first, and she cannot believe it, and she doesn't understand it, and it's an interesting character trait to have someone who is like this, but it is kind of overdone. As I said, I've said this repeatedly in a number of videos. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it's not unique in any way. Now, Rarity slowly kind of overcomes this. She becomes less of a narcissist and more of a, I'm not sure what the opposite of a narcissist is, but she becomes less narcissistic as time goes on. You can see it in her adult, but as a kid, even after the Dan kind of saved her, she was still kind of had that vibe about her. And even as an adult, if we time skip to her being an adult, she still has the narcissistic tendencies. She still believes that she is awesome. She still believes that she is the best. Her day with Dan is spent of him drawing a picture of her, or painting a picture of her in the nude, which is an attempt at seduction, which I actually wanted to touch on really quickly because she attempts to seduce Dan the most out of any of the characters. Now, he did reject Applejack at first, telling her that he was in love with Rainbow Dash, and Rarity already knew this, but she still attempted to seduce him twice in the day that they were with, and once later in the story. So 3 times she's tried, and it shows that she still, despite everything that he's done for her, she still believes that she is better. She even said at one point that Applejack told her that he's going after Rainbow Dash, but she thought that he would change for her. Now, that is basically Rarity saying, I'm better than Rainbow Dash, I'm better than Applejack, you should change for me. And, like I said, that's my problem with her character, because she hasn't learned as much. She says that she has a fake persona that she puts out, a refined persona to protect her from the guys who want to hurt her, like Blue Blood did all those years ago. But if she can't break away from that persona without Dan having to physically say, stop pretending, then it's not so much a persona as it is almost like a bipolar thing or a multiple personality thing. So when he says drop the act, I have a feeling that it's not an act. It's more of that she wants to become something that he likes in order to appease him so that she can be with him because she feels strangely attracted to this guy. But that's just my personal opinion. Jace the Pony Sculptor might have been going for something completely different, but I do have issues with Rarity's character in the story. Not like I hate her character, I'm just saying that something about it just doesn't click for me personally. Moving on, now we come to my favorite character, which is weird because I personally find that she is not usually done very well, Pinkie Pie. Now, Pinkie Pie as a kid was what you would expect from her. She was popular because she had so many friends, because she just liked to make people smile and liked to make them happy. She would always cheer people up. She met Dan randomly in a field one day when she was just lying in the grass. Won't spoil too much of it for you, but she undergoes an amazing character development where she loses someone close to her, and but she's talking to Dan and she's saying, you know, she's basically talking to him and saying, there's someone who I can't cheer up, and I'm confused by it, and I don't understand it. I'm not a complicated person, but this person's hurt in a complicated way, so how do I fix it? Can you tell me? Can you help me, Dan? And he's like, I really don't know. I can't help you. And the person she's trying to help actually ends up, spoiler, but like I said, you should have already read the story, killing herself. And Pinkie Pie basically, it breaks her heart. And she becomes Pinkamena. Now, not the psychotic killer Pinkamena. Sorry, Sai, this isn't that kind of story. But just the depressed, the sad, the lonely. She basically becomes alienated from all her friends group because they all kind of start assuming that Pinkie Pie could have done something to help this girl. She could have saved her. She could have done all these things. She could have helped her in any way. And they've started spreading rumors that Pinkie Pie, you know, she was more than friends with this girl. Which actually ends up being true, that Pinkie Pie is a lesbian, but that is besides the point completely. It doesn't even matter. But, and then Dan shows Pinkie Pie something very personal, that his brother's grave, that he died in a drunk driving accident. And it kind of puts it all into perspective for Pinkie Pie. He gives this long-winded speech about how live on for the person. You know, don't cry for them, live for them. Don't cry for those who are gone, live for those who are still here, because he said he couldn't stand seeing her like this. And she realizes how much this person cares for her. Because everyone else left her when this happened, but he came back and he tried to help her in any way he could. He put himself out there, and she loves him, but not in a sexual way. It's even mentioned that even when he's lying with her the first time, there's no sexual tension between them, there's no romantic tension between them. She is more like a big sister to him. She cares for him a lot, so much, in such a platonic way, and it's incredible. Now, as an adult, Pinkie Pie undergoes one of the most startling reach outs of characters for her. Now, the cool thing about Jace the Pony Sculptor, getting off topic for a quick second, is that he manages to incorporate all of the girls' personalities at the same time as making or adding new things to them. like Pinkie Pie, like that depression thing and losing one of her friends. It's not in the main story, but it does work with her character. Now, as an adult, they basically just go for a walk in the woods. They have like a picnic and whatever. And Pinkie Pie basically says, you know, I'm not good at serious stuff, but I'm going to talk about it. And one of the cool things is, as she goes into this winded speech about how, you know, it still hurts her every day to think about all this stuff, and how he's the only one who helped her through it. And she's just, she's through this entire time just crying her eyes out, and Dan's holding her. And she says something that struck me. And she said that she fell in love with this girl who was depressed, and the two of them fed each other. Pinkie Pie's happiness tried to feed her sadness, while the sadness fed Pinkie Pie. So Pinkie Pie started becoming depressed, and she tried to cheer this girl up, but she never let it show. And Pinkie Pie says at one point, now this is probably one of the greatest moments of the story in my personal opinion, that there was nothing she could have done, and she accepts that. It was going to happen sooner or later. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever worked with, or not worked with, sorry, that's my personal thing. If you guys have ever had someone who's committed suicide in your life, or known someone who, in turn, has had someone commit suicide in their life, but one of the hardest things to admit is that there was nothing you could have done. So many people think, if I'd done this, if I'd done this, then they would have changed their mind, they would have stopped doing it, they would have done all this stuff. One of the things that people don't understand is depression and suicidal tendencies are a mental illness. You can't fix a mental illness with physical treatment alone. A hug, a show of physical affection is not going to fix a mental illness, no matter what things like that or people say. No matter what your brain tells you to believe, that you could have changed something, you honestly could not have. And it is one of the hardest things to accept, that you are powerless to save someone that you love and care about so deeply. And she goes out and admits it fully. She says that she wasn't enough, she couldn't save her, she wasn't enough. And that brings Pinkie Pie's character to a whole new level, because she is admitting that she is powerless. She is admitting that she is weak, but at the same time, it makes her stronger in the sense that she accepts these things and still continues to be Pinkie Pie, still continues to be happy and loving and caring. So I love the character of Pinkie Pie in the story. I believe she is portrayed beautifully, and I don't think I could have seen her done better. Now, I'm going to read a line directly off of it because I believe that this is one of the nicest things I've read. Now, I'm sorry, but I had to copy this directly from the story, so this is copyright Jason the Pony Sculptor, his story, 7 Days in Heaven. It still hurts. On days like today, when the sun is out and the wind seems to blow the right way, I can almost see her, and I wish, more than anything, she was back. But I know I can live my life now. That's what she would have wanted. And then she kind of stares off into the distance and smiles as the wind blows just the right way. And the smile's gone again for a second afterwards, but you can kind of almost see it. She says she can see it. Now, okay, next character. I'm kind of speeding through these. I hope I'm speeding through these. Hope this isn't too long. Next character is Twilight. Now, Twilight as a kid, unfortunately she goes through the least character development, but it still works because she went through the most character development in the show, so you can just kind of assume she is a nerd, she is bookish, she spends most of her time in the library studying, she's in all advanced classes, she is socially awkward, she has an intense dislike of herself. Now, she doesn't like herself because she does not conform to the norms of society, she believes. She believes that because she is different, because she is a pariah of society. Pariah, for those of you who don't know, means an outcast. I just like the word. I think it rolls off the tongue very nicely. But because she is this pariah, that she does not fit in. Now, this is a commonplace mistake that many people make in society today, that if you are not the same as society, you are weird, you are abnormal, you should hate yourself. I'm not trying to get into a lecture here about feeling good about yourself and all this stuff. But in all honesty, I'm not going to even touch on this. I shouldn't even be talking about this. I'm sorry. But again, Dan swoops in, comes to the rescue, basically tells her, you know, it's true that it's hard to get out of your comfort zone, out of the library, and actually talk to people, but believe him, it's worth it. You know, he says, believe me, it's worth it. And Twilight accepts that. She had gone to a party. She had managed to knock over all the beer. So this is a high school party, so of course there's beer. And she runs out on the street, you know, like she's saying, I'm a freak. There's something wrong with me. And this is, again, she really doesn't like herself because she's different. And Dan rescues her, basically says, you know, like I said, get out of your comfort zone. It's hard, but it's worth it. And she actually goes into a lot more development in the adult version, so we're going to time skip ahead to the adult. She basically, for her day with Dan, makes him fill out a whole bunch of university applications, because he's in a community college, right? And she says she doesn't want him to squander his talent, so they fill out a whole bunch. And this is actually where a bit of conflict comes into the story. Because Dan, he fills out for apparently like 3 hours, and he's like, can we take a break? And she lets him take a small break, and he's like, well, you know what, why don't we just spend the day together? I'll fill them out later, I promise. And Twilight, now, I believe the character of Twilight does love Dan in a romantic way, but the thing is, she's smart enough to realize that, number one, Rarity and Applejack have probably already talked about how his crush on Dash stopped them from getting him. Number two, she has realized that, well, so she basically realizes she has almost no chance. Number two, she realizes that there's no way she's going to be able to compete with Rainbow Dash, Applejack, and Rarity all at the same time. She just doesn't like the odds of that, so she actually becomes more, she falls into the role of more of a guardian figure. She becomes this person who's caring for him. While Pinkie Pie is the older sister, she becomes like the watchful eye over him at all times, just making sure and guiding him along the right path. And that's why she's trying to get him to college, because she doesn't want him squandering his talent. And she kind of starts becoming depressed by the fact that he promised to do this, because she says that there's no way he's actually going to do it. He's going to just ignore it, like he always does. And she launches into this rant about how if he doesn't apply himself 100%, then everything he has said has meant nothing. And to all the girls, how he's helped all the girls means nothing. And Dan's confused by this, and she goes to explain that he can't, or when the girls get older, they're going to look back and they're going to see what a failure he's become. He's homeless or whatever because he didn't get at the right college or whatever. And they're going to realize they took advice from this person. If you got advice from someone and they ended up crazy and homeless on the street, would you, like a week later, would you take that advice to heart? Would you completely accept that advice? And Twilight is actually shows great maternal instinct here. She is caring for everyone in the group, not just Dan. She is saying, you know, because if everything you say to these girls doesn't mean anything, we're gonna get a depressed Pinkie Pie. We're gonna get like a Applejack who doesn't believe she's worth the same. We're gonna get a Rarity who believes that she is gonna act smug and superior at all times, and she doesn't want that. And she is basically telling him, you know, man the hell up. Just stop being such a little, you know, spider web in the wind. I'm not sure if you guys have that saying wherever you are, but it means just being all wishy-washy, just letting life friggin' push you around, and stand up for yourself. You know, work for something, work for what you want. Don't just kind of go with the flow. You have to go, sometimes you have to go against the flow, I guess. God, I'm so bad at this. But, you know, and then, well, I guess I'm going to move on to Fluttershy, because the actual next scene between the two of them is actually more of a development for the Dan character. So Fluttershy, for some reason I screwed up here. But Fluttershy as a kid was, as you'd expect her to be in the show. She's long, pink hair, very shy, just kind of being pushed around in the halls. It was compared to a base basketball, just bouncing around between people. But the interesting thing about Fluttershy's character is it gives a reason for her shyness, but the character of Fluttershy is also the most aggressive when it's coming to romancing this Dan character. Now, some of you guys might be thinking that might be a bit odd for a character as shy as her, but what happened is Fluttershy in her child years was neglected. Now, it isn't said outright in the story, but you can piece it together. She doesn't know if her parents are coming to pick her up. She doesn't know where her parents are the night she invites Dan over. She's like, they're probably out somewhere. She feels hurt. Her house doesn't have any video games or any movies for her to entertain herself with. Apparently all she has is a guitar. The personality of someone who is neglected is very hard to do because there is at least two different personalities that this person will go through. There is the submissive persona that the outward persona that Fluttershy uses all the time. She actually ends up using that persona to get Dan to that there is a clock scene here. It's not full-blown sex, but it's manual stimulation between the characters, to put it properly. And this is only a few days after they met, and Dan realizes that this is wrong afterwards, but she is so desperate for some form of affection, some sign that someone actually cares about her, that she is willing to do this no matter how shy she is. She just wants to feel wanted and needed by someone. And that is the submissive persona that someone who is suffering from a lack of attention will go through. That's why she basically just says, you know, she needs it. She needs the sexual intercourse. She needs to be wanted. She needs to be needed and wanted by someone. She just needs it so much that she is willing to give up her purity in order just to feel it, just even if it's just for a minute, with a guy she met a few days ago. And that shows that she is being grossly neglected by her parents, because that is also what happens if we get into psychology. That is usually the main cause of people who act like that. Continuing on. So we'll go to adult Fluttershy, because like I said, Fluttershy actually is the most aggressive person. She while wrestling for the phone, because Dan is going to call the girls to come over to listen to Fluttershy sing to help her become more, outgoing. They end up in a compromising position, and she just tries to seduce him right there. She ends up apologizing for it, but after she sings for the girls, she comes into his room and says that she needs it. She needs the attention, all of it again. And when he refuses, this is where the second part of the personality of someone who has been neglected comes in. Now, this is the shell. Someone who is neglected does not has an inner part of themselves that is like a shell. Now, it is the tough part around them that stops them from feeling hurt and pain by being ignored by someone who should care about them a lot, i.e. their parents. And her shell kind of comes out, and she basically yells at him, at Dan, calls him a coward. She basically says, you think you're a white knight saving all of these girls, but do you know how much you're actually hurting us? Do you know how much you're hurting Applejack and Rarity when you can't fully love them because you're already in love with someone else? Do you know how much you hurt Pinkie Pie and Twilight when you squander what talent you have and just blow it all away because you're so goddamn afraid to put yourself out there. And she's like, and then she goes, don't even get me started on Rainbow Dash. And Dan at this point is just covering his ears and he's crying and he's telling her to stop it. And she won't stop because she's like, you need to hear this. If you can't stand to hear the truth, you know what the thing is? She points out how weak he is. She says, if you will go around fixing everyone else's problems, you don't have to fix your own. And that's what you're doing. And this gets into Dan's character, but what she's saying is the absolute truth. But that is the second part of the personality of someone who has been neglected. It's the assertive part. It's the part that takes what she wants, takes what she needs. She says that she actually, even if he doesn't return her affection, that's fine. But, I'm sorry, I have the exact quote here. You asked me why I wanted to be with you. It's because I care about you. And unlike you, I go after what I care for. If you don't care about me, that's fine, I understand. But I wasn't willing to just give you up. Now, she shows her assertiveness. She has an assertive side. But they're two sides of the same coin. They're the submissive and the dominant personality both make up this person who has been horribly ignored throughout her entire life, and she just wants to be loved. And I believe she finds love at the end of the story in Big Mac, which isn't a bad pairing in general, but, you know, whatever. We'll continue. Because I believe this is still getting long. Okay. Rainbow Dash. Now, Rainbow Dash as a kid, basically, because the character idolizes Rainbow Dash as a girl, he basically loves her. It's kind of, it seems kind of biased, a lot of things he says about her, but from what I can tell as a kid, she was, as you would expect, very rambunctious, very, she runs with the jock crowd, she likes to party, she likes to have fun, she likes to have a good time, she's very social, she's very outgoing, everything that Dan is not, and yet they still somehow manage to be friends. That's basically it, honestly. Like I said, he fawns over her, so it's kind of hard to develop a characterization for someone who he's basically describing as perfect at every turn. But you can tell that Rainbow Dash does feel for this guy, because when they get to when they finally have their day together, she dresses up all nice for him in a dress, which is something that she never does, and she basically confides in him that they basically have an argument because she thinks that he was having sex with all the girls, and when he tells her that no, he just kissed a few of them, she actually freaks out even more about it, because she's like she basically she regrets setting up this week, because she really cares for this guy and she doesn't want that to happen. She really just wants to be with him. But like I said, it's hard to develop her character too much because of he idolizes her. He wouldn't say anything bad about Rainbow Dash. That's not how it works. You don't say bad things about the people you love or the people you are infatuated with completely and utterly. But with that, that's the final character. Now we'll go into the main character, Dan. Now, one of the reasons, or the reason that I believe he should have been an OC, is because when someone writes a second-person fic, it is in order to immerse the reader into the story. Now, in order to immerse a reader, they need to give a lot of parts where the person could easily fit in their own thing. You know, the classic, the bell rings when you're about to tell someone your name, or things like that. But unfortunately, in order for this main character to work, there has to be a lot of set points about him. He needs to have had a brother who is, was it 6 or 12 years older than him? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was like 6 years older than him, who died in a car accident, drug driving accident. He has to have been beaten by his parents. He has to have good artistic skills. He has to go to a community college. He has to like, all these things have to be in place in order for this character to work. And unfortunately, when I was reading, I was like, I didn't have a brother who died in a car accident like that. My parents didn't beat me, so it kind of took me out of it. And I kind of started inserting the name Dan in every time I saw you, just to kind of make it seem a little bit more simple. So that's my only issue with the character of Dan. But besides that, he's your classic nerd. He's shy. He's insecure. He basically thinks about everyone except for himself, which is an admirable trait. But unfortunately, you can't go through life doing that, or else people are just going to walk all over you, or you're going to end up hurting only yourself in the end. And that's about it for him. Besides that, Jason Point Sculptor managed to add enough ambiguity to the character that you can make it fit into you if you aren't over analytical like I am. But unfortunately, my over analytical mind is not something I could turn on and off. So, right. So that went a lot quicker than it did last time. But now we're going to talk about the romance and the cloth. Now, the romance aspect is very interesting for me. I think I'm gonna say it on this video is because I like looking at romance because I can see what the author personally perceives romance as, because the word love is so ambiguous in our culture. You know, you can love anything. I can love this glass of water and use the same word to say that as when I say I love my parents, or I love my pet fish. I don't have a pet fish, but if I did, the same way I love my favorite pair of jeans, in the same way I love a band I've never met, in the same way I love the sandwich I'm about to eat, and it's the same word for every single thing. So for someone who doesn't understand emotions like I do, it is very confusing when people say the word love, or like for that matter, but that's way out there in the ballpark. But I like reading romance because you can see what the author's personal definition of love is. It kind of fills in a bit of a gap for me. So when I look at this person's definition of love, it is one of the purest forms that I have ever, that I like to read. It is a pure, I'm not sure if unadulterated is the right word I'm looking for here, but it is pure love. It is a love between two people. It is not circumstantial. It is not influenced by anything. It is just this boy loves this girl, and this girl loves this boy, and they care about each other so much they are willing to dedicate themselves to each other. And I believe that is the purest form of love, and I believe that is one of the only forms of love that is worth pursuing. So that's a personal opinion on the romance. I believe the romance is done fantastically. Now the cloth. The cloth is the cool thing about the cloth is it's not described in extravagant detail. Now I saw some people who commented said the cloth was done badly. Now the thing is, people who read cloth for sex, well, number one, there are two kinds of people who write cloth. There are two kinds of cloth, in my opinion, or pornography in general, or like pornography and stories in general. There's the kind that is for the act of sex. These are usually one-shots, or they can be a story with multiple chapters, but they usually contain sex in every chapter. And then there are the ones for the emotional bond between the characters. And these ones are usually lacking in the detail about the actual actions being confirmed, but they usually focus on something, like a partner's face and their expression, or how the mind processes while they are doing the deed. And in this story, all the acts are emotional acts. His first time with Fluttershy and the stimulation, or whatever it's called, manual stimulation, that's the word I was looking for. Through the entire time, he kept seeing flashes of rainbows, and that's hinting at that he believes he's betraying Rainbow Dash. And he's actually having sex with Rainbow Dash for the first time. It's sensual, but it's not overly pornographic. It's more of a final emotional connection these two characters share. They're giving themselves to each other in a final way to connect them fully and utterly. They're becoming a bonded pair. and in that sense, the relationship is basically stepped up to what I believe is the final level. When you give yourself completely and utterly to someone else, you have given them your everything, you have entrusted them basically with your life. You can't go any further than that. So, like I said, well, not like I said, the clop I believe was done well. Now, I don't even know if I should call it clop, actually, now I think about it, because they are, like I said, they are humanized. So it's just sex, really. But since it is an MLP fanfic, clop seems to work better in this sense. But, honestly, if I had to rate this on my 5 rating scale, I could give it a 5 out of 5 based on characters alone, honestly. But 5 out of 5, not even like being generous here, because if I read the story like 2 months ago, and then I was gonna do a review of it, and then I kind of forgot. I came back and I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna do a review for 7 Days of Heaven. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I better read it again just to make sure. And I was giddy with excitement as I read the story, and that's how much I love the story. So, if you guys haven't read it yet and watched the entire review, please check it out. I'm not sure how long this review is going to be, but thank you for sticking with it, because I'm sure this one is long. And Jason Point Sculptor, if you somehow managed to find this man, honestly, you are my writing, what I aspire to be in terms of writing. You are fantastic. You bring characters to life in ways that I could not have ever perceived possible. And I thank you so much for it. So, that's my review, 7 Days of Heaven. Link to the story is below, as usual, as it always is, as it should be. And I guess, have a fantastic day, everyone. I will talk to you later, and I will see you soon, I guess. Sorry, it's 4:30. I'm a little tired and I have no idea how to end this. Do I have a joke in mind? I wish the video was 7 hours so I could say I hope you enjoyed my 7 hours in heaven. But, you know, that wouldn't work. So, on that note, have a nice time.